All right. This is not a ride sharing video. Once again, this is indeed not a ride sharing video. What up, folks? Once again, it is your boy Tim, the handsome liberal indeed. Today we're going to be asking a question. Now that it seems like number 45, President Trump, is out of the news for at least a day or two, maybe we can perhaps discuss something else. Obviously, his name is likely to come up on the program, but we're going to try to tackle other issues that are going on. Today, we're going to have a more off topic, so to speak. What I want to present to the folks, and I'm going to plead ignorance on this because I don't have a freaking clue, but I want to hear from you folks. Why is there such a stark difference amongst the mindset of Republicans versus Democrats when it comes to racial issues? Make no mistake about it, we've had a lot of issues that folks are either suggesting are racially motivated or not. And it seems like on every single issue, the folks on the right and the folks on the left view the issue differently. What is it about the parties that make this so likely? Whether we're talking about the recent death of a subway guy out in New York on a subway train, was apparently harassing the passengers, making threats, and a guy choked him. He lost his life. And folks are suggesting that was racial. It was a white guy choking out a black guy. And once again, both the right and left have a difference of opinion about that. Whether we're talking about George Zimmerman taking the life of Trayvon Martin, or what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse, or the very viewpoint of Black Lives Matter. Hell, even LeBron James and some of them folks are in the mix. Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. There is always a difference in how the right view things versus the left. Why is that? And like I stated before, I'm definitely pleading ignorance. I want to hear from the folks. Why is there such a difference in opinion on that? And before we go to the comment section, I always make it clear, program is and shall forever remain MAGA friendly. Liberals are welcome as well, but the program is MAGA friendly. MAGA are my preferred guests. Tap the screen, get your boy up to 5,000 likes as always. Today is President Trump, speaking of, today is his birthday, turns 77 years of age. So wanted to bring that up, even though he is a vibrant elderly man at this point. For folks who would suggest that Biden is too old, understand Trump is 77 years old himself. So looking in the comments, and I see some folks are saying happy birthday to the president. We all love MAGA, says Chuck Roberts. All right. Trump supporters wait for January 6th indictment in Georgia. You guys went right into Trump. Even though the topic is not about Trump, you guys really love Trump. Yeah, there are two more indictments coming for President Trump. Obviously, Georgia is coming because they already are preparing the defense mechanisms. And one of the things I wanted to talk about before we get back on the actual topic is the fact that you see the crowd. Now, Trump has asked in both of his indictments in New York and Trump-friendly Florida, Trump has asked protesters to show up and show support. And a lot of folks feared his indictment crowd would be very reminiscent to January 6th. I'll tell you one thing. After seeing what happened with Trump's indictment in New York and now in a Trump-friendly state like Florida, he don't have the same draw in terms of folks that support him in regards to him being mistreated, if he believes it's a witch hunt. Now, they're going to show up and vote for him. That makes sense. If you support Trump, you're not going to vote for Biden. But in terms of folks believing Trump is the victim of some type of attack or a stolen election or something like that, his supporters have obviously waned. In regards to those who showed up to protest his indictment in New York and certainly in Florida, where he has a lot of support in Florida, it's not a lot of folks showing up at this stuff. And this is after Trump has stated, they're mistreating me, and I want you to come and show support. They're not showing up in strong numbers at all like they did for, say, January 6th. All right, looking in the comments, middle of the work week and working hours. Well, when was January 6th? What day was January 6th on? Middle of the work week and working hours. Wasn't the inauguration? That wasn't held. Was that held on a weekend? I don't believe it was. And it certainly was during the 9 to 5 hours, so I don't understand that. People are working, we have to pay bills, says Bio. That's what we're talking about. On January 6th, was that not on a work day? What am I missing? Was it not during business hours? What am I missing? That excuse doesn't play when you look at January 6th. And they were flying. People flew out to Washington, got hotel rooms and everything. When you look at the passion for his supporters on January 6th, and you compare that to New York and now in Florida, it's just not there. It's nowhere near as significant. Democratic Party is the new Stalin. Can't beat them, so lock them up. No morals. Well, in regards to the belief that the Democratic Party is the new Stalin, folks suggest the same thing about Trump, that he's the new Adolf. I don't really buy into Armageddon politics, whereas if you vote for this party, the world's going to end, or Stalin's coming back, or Adolf is coming. It's not going to be that. Regardless of what Biden does to this country, if Trump gets elected in 2024, he'll be saying America is a fantastic, well-performing country in 6 months. If it is that destroyed, if it is that much in ruin, how can one guy suggest he could turn it around in 6 months? And he's already said that. He's already said he could get things back in 6 months. So that right there should be a clear-cut sign. America is not as awful and as awful of a position as folks are saying. It takes longer than that to get a country that's in ruins back on track. Trump would be saying that in 6 months. America's a well-oiled machine, and we're running fine now. So I don't buy into Armageddon politics. Rioters were bussed in for destruction and burning business. I'm assuming you're talking about some Black Lives Matter stuff, because there was no burning of businesses on January 6th. It was strictly an aim at the Capitol building. Biden can't even complete a thought. Well, Tracy, let me ask you folks that, because Trump is suggesting that Biden is weaponizing the DOJ, weaponizing the FBI, and using those entities to go after him. If he has dementia, don't know where the hell he's at, and can't string together a sentence, how is he able to do that? I just want to make it clear, you got to pick one scenario or the other. Either this guy is a Stalinist mastermind, what some folks are saying, and he knows how to weaponize government, or he is some individual that needs to be in a mental hospital because he's slobbering all over himself. He cannot be both. He cannot be both simultaneously. Somebody is giving him credit for something that has to be wrong. Let's talk about it. As always, the box is open. Tap the screen. Get your boy up to 5,000 likes. We do not block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. You don't have to agree with the host. We say that every program. If you do disagree with the host, nobody gives a damn. It doesn't work like that here. All right, looking in the comments, Obama is price. What does that mean? Trump is such a loon, he can't keep his mouth shut. Sadie, you know, that's interesting you would say that, because the judge did order him not to talk about the case with the co-defendant, I believe, and some other folks. Let's see if he fits that narrative, because he's going to be holding rallies. Let's see if he can keep his mouth shut like that. Great discussion question for you. Brain chains. Spill away. Let me know. Most of his supporters who would have been at the rally are in jail after January 6th. Well, that's only like 800, 400 people. You're trying to tell me Trump's entire passionate group of supporters only encompasses about 400 and some people? There wasn't that many people put in jail from January 6th. Not in comparison to the tens of millions that voted for him. You're saying that that's the only amount of passionate supporters he has, is those few? What happened to Kerry Lake? And I'll go to the box shortly. What happened to Kerry Lake support suggesting that 80 million Trump supporters are at war and they're card-carrying members of the NRA? That doesn't sound like what we're seeing. All right, going to the box. Takesha Blue, good afternoon. Program again, Takesha. So what do you think?
What are we talking about today? I actually
Well, we were talking about a totally different topic, but Trump has a way of making himself into the conversation.
Yes,
What I
Lord.
originally what I originally posed was, why is it that folks on the right versus folks on the left see racial issues so differently? And I'm talking about everything from the subway passenger that was choked out recently by a white guy, and folks that are on the right and left see that differently, whether it's Colin Kaepernick or Kyle Rittenhouse or Trayvon Martin. And I mean, every single incident, right and left see it differently. Why is that? Because I'm totally ignorant on that.
Because most of the people on the right grew up thinking that racism is okay. That's just the answer. They think it's okay. They think that a white man is above everybody, even their own
Mhm.
wives. And that's why they see it different.
So you're basically suggesting that they grew up thinking along the lines of white supremacy.
Yeah. They haven't tried to even um dig into if there is really racism going on. They just keep their own thoughts to themselves, and then they brew little seeds up and they teach them that stuff, and then the seed continues to sprout and grow until the next seed and the next seed and the next seed. Men tend to have a problem with not being dominant. And the white man has a real bad problem with not being dominant. Even even over black men. They want to be dominant, period, in this
What
world.
makes you say that? What makes you say that white men want to be dominant?
Look how they treated the black president. Look how they treated him.
Well, we haven't exactly, us black people haven't exactly been friendly to Donald Trump, though, have we?
Why would we be? When was he friendly to us?
Okay.
Answer the question.
Well, he talked about
He started
uh
out
up yeah.
diminishing us.
Well, when you say why has he been friendly to us, Al Sharpton hung around with him, Jesse Jackson, Don King,
Let
Mike
me let me
Tyson.
explain let me explain something to you. My people, black people, we hang around who can give us a come up. If we think
Well,
we can get, hold on, if we think we can get some prestige, recognition, and whatever, we'll deal with that person so we can come up. It's
that's a
the same.
sellout. You're
Well,
describing a
hey,
sellout, though.
I keep telling you, we got some sellouts. Look at Candace Owens. What
Mm,
good? What does she say good about black people?
not much.
Okay,
Not
okay.
much.
So guess what she does? She panders to the other side to keep her money and her fame. And that's just the truth. So Donald Trump knew that he could gather more. Cause see, you need more than white people in this world. You need some blacks, you need some Hispanics, you need everybody to make the world run. So let me explain something to you. You can work with some white people that hate black people, but they'll sit up and have lunch with you and talk to you every day. Think about it. I was in the grocery store one day in Piggly Wiggly, standing in line, talking to this white guy. We having an awesome conversation. We laughing and talking. His child said to me, "Dad, I thought you didn't like black people."
Damn.
If his child didn't say that, would I have known he didn't like me?
Wow.
People
How did
pretend.
you?
People
And by the
will.
way, I want to say something real quick. Crystal B. Allen, appreciate that. Thank you. How did you respond to that? Did you try to play it off
Guess what
like you
I
didn't
said?
hear it?
Because I'm a very non-confrontational person. I said, it's okay, baby. He has the right to do that. That man turned around and didn't say nothing else.
Damn.
You're
It
teaching
blew.
him, number one, you're teaching him hate. Number two, you're being fake in teaching him hate. So you're showing him two different things. You're telling him at home, hate a black person. I can't stand a black person. Then when you see one out, you laughing and talking to him.
But
That's,
okay, because I got a host of folks in the audience that believe you're just straight up lying. I see folks
I
constantly
promise
did
to
not.
God, on my grandbaby, on my life, I was in Piggly Wiggly in McCalla, Alabama. I don't have
Mm.
a reason to lie. I'm not on here to get likes. I'm not lying. That actually happened in the grocery store in the line at Piggly Wiggly.
How old did the child look like they was that
He
said
looked
something
like he
like that?
could be about 5 or 6, and he had a
Yeah.
baby. He had a little girl in the buggy part. She looked like she could be one. That's how the conversation started. I said, "Oh, she is so cute. She looks just like you." He said, "No." He said, "If you see my wife, then you would change your mind." And we just started talking. I don't have no reason to come on TikTok and lie. What does TikTok do for me?
Right.
Am I famous
So
off of TikTok? Is TikTok coming to Alabama Power with me when I pay my bill? I don't have to lie.
So let me ask you this: but you be because you're in Alabama, I take it still. I've often wondered this because my both of my grandparents were part of the mass migration from the South during the Jim Crow era. My grandmother on my father's side was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and my mom was in Memphis. My mom's mom was in Memphis, and they both left because of the mistreatment. Why do you think so many blacks continue to stay in that area when folks would suggest that a lot of that stuff still exists down there?
It's in the certain counties in Alabama where racism is real prevalent. See, I stay in Jefferson County, and Jefferson County is mostly black people. Now, I live in a neighborhood where my neighborhood is mixed, and all of us get along. We got a sheriff on the street. He talking about shutting the street down so we can have this big block party this summer. So, I'm in a city. I'm in a county where it's predominantly black. Now, when you go on the outskirts of Alabama, like Clanton, Coleman, and all that, you need a baseball bat. You need some ammunition, extra. You need all that because those are
So how do
sundown
you?
towns.
But I don't know if you saw the old movie Green Card. How do you migrate? Let's say you want to go from Alabama and visit a friend over in Mississippi or in Florida somewhere. How do you feel safe traveling? Because you got to go through some of those counties. You may need to stop for gas or something.
Who gonna stop for gas? Who? Man, listen to me. When me and my friends travel to Florida, we make sure it's full till we get to some other. I mean, we have enough gas so we can get to another place where we feel and deem it's safe. Safe. You okay in the daytime if you just keep riding through, but when it start getting sundown, you better get on up out of there, baby.
So you're suggesting that sundown town still exists?
They still, I promise you, they still exist. My son used to work for a moving company, and he was with a white coworker, and they had to go to this house, but they ended up at the wrong house in this person's driveway, and in the yard, it said, "Do not trespass." He said a man came out with a gun pointed at them. He said he believes that if he wasn't with who he was with, he could have been a goner.
Wow. All
Because
right.
because the
I know I
governor
got.
because the
Go ahead.
governor and the representatives down here, they're still racist. So when the top is racist, the racists still think it's okay to be racist.
Well, with Trump suggesting he's done more for blacks than anybody else,
I
maybe we
keep
need to
telling
put
you,
him back in office.
I need him to stop telling that lie. Until he is black, he don't know if he done did more for black folks than what anybody else done did or not. Tell Trump to go sit down and take that backwards toupee off and sit down and wait on his trial and keep his mouth closed.
I gotta go. Backwards toupee. All right, Takesha. Appreciate
Bye.
you coming here. See ya. I've never. Wow. Okay, let me go back to the box. I think it goes both ways. And that is something also that we can tackle here because there is no shortage of folks that are white that believe that a lot of the system is starting to be intolerant of white people. Certainly Christianity, certainly folks that are straight as opposed to members of the LGBT community. All of those folks are also suggesting that the system is not treating them fairly. But the predominant question we're asking here is simple. Why is it that the GOP, Republicans and conservatives, versus the Democratic Party, liberals and progressives, have such a starkly different view on racial issues? The view between the two groups is night and day. Damn near maybe you need to talk to an independent to see where it's going. But when you look at how the folks on the right versus how the folks on the left feel about racial issues, it is night and day. We can talk about the number one case currently that we're dealing with, and that is the guy in the former, can't even say it right, the Marine in New York. that was actually acting as a good Samaritan choked out a aggressive passenger who happened to be African American, and the guy died. That's been in the news. Obviously, we've heard of the Trayvon Martin case from years ago, Colin Kaepernick, or rather we're talking Kyle Rittenhouse, all of this stuff. There is a total difference in the parties. Why is that? I'm sorely pleading ignorance. I don't have a clue. I want to hear from you folks. Now, my last caller suggested that is because white supremacy exists on the GOP side. But what do you think? Looking in the comment section. Because everyone is ignorant, because everyone is ignorance. Okay, Trent, somebody. That Marine did what we were taught to do. He saved lives. Warrior. Marines are taught to kill. Period. But they say, well, you absolutely need to destroy it overnight. Marines are taught to kill. Are you suggesting that that Marine intended to take that life? Isn't that what the Marines are taught to do? Let your boy know in the comments. Democrats, middle name is oppression. Valley Girl, friend of the program. Democrats are racist. Look at the people supporting the LGBTQ and reparations. How is supporting, I'd love to have you on, Jay. How is supporting the LGBTQ folks racist? I'd love for you to elaborate on that. Tap the screen. Let your thumbs not be lazy. Get your boy up to 15,000 likes. There's 900 plus of you in here. This is a MAGA-friendly program. It always will be a MAGA-friendly program. Nevertheless, liberals are welcome as well. We don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. You don't have to agree with the damn host. First Amendment, free speech rights reigns supreme here. We'll go back to the box. Keep it moving with Maddie P. Maddie P. Why is there such a stark difference, racial viewpoints between the two parties? Good afternoon, Maddie.
Hey, how you doing? I think there's a divide because there's a lot of information that's either ignored by each party or each side, and in some cases it's hard to hear the truth of the matter of whatever it is. Some other due to like bias or religious beliefs or other reasons.
Let me get it. And by the way, Valley Girl, appreciate that snack, that hot dog. Thank you. Give me an example of how religion would make you have a different racial view on any of these topics. Because you mentioned religion. How does religion play in the race?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not as religious as others. I did grow up, born and raised Christian. And
What part of the country did you grow up in?
I'm in Florida.
Now, because you don't have a picture, are you white? Are you Hispanic?
I'm white.
What is your race?
White.
Okay. Now, my last caller suggested, and you would fit the bill, being a white guy growing up in a conservative area. Did you see a lot of incidents of white supremacy among the party, among the people you grew up with?
At all. No.
None at all. Okay. So why do you think you mentioned religion? Go ahead and finish your thought, because I'm trying to figure out where it ties into differences in race.
Well, I just mentioned that because I know that can be a factor. To be honest,
How?
no, I'm just not for me personally. I know that for other people, they do mention it. It's like, oh yeah, my religion says this, so I can't believe this or whatever the case. It was a very, just a kind of like a prod at that because I
Are we
know,
talking to Christian? Are we talking Christianity?
and any religion really. Some people just because they believe in something, they may not like another political side for whatever reason. So that's why I was saying that. I don't want to
I don't
dive.
know. Yeah, see,
I don't want to go down
and that's the
hole
reason
too
I
much.
question you. I don't know if I've ever heard where religion has led folks to be intolerant of. I've heard of being intolerant of other religions. I get that, but of other races, I've never heard that.
No, what I'm saying is, like I just mentioned it because I have heard it. If you, I mean, we can
Okay.
move on from that particular topic because
All right. Yeah.
it's not gonna go anywhere. But what I was saying is, as far as the divide, I believe that there's a divide because There might be, some people from the left who just cannot accept the facts of what's going on the right as it being the truth, and vice versa. Just based on, and it could be based on bias, it could be based on personal beliefs, it could just be based on what you believe and what you were raised to believe, from a young age to an adult. And that
Well,
could it,
let me
and that
give
could
you some examples. I don't want to get too deep into the generalities. Let me give you an example. Like, for instance, folks on the left believe white privilege is a real thing in this country. Folks on the right think that's ridiculous. Why do you think there's such a stark difference in view on that?
Well, I think that just derives from personal experiences. You know what I mean? There might be just a belief that, like, oh, just because you're a certain color, you get to do this, or you get away with this because you're white or because you're black or whatever the case is. And for me, it's not really the case. Being white, growing up in my area, it doesn't matter if I'm white, black, or indifferent or any other color. Like, for example, if you get pulled over by a police officer, whatever the case is, and you messed up doing something, you're gonna get a ticket, and you're not gonna get away with it just because you're white. You know what I mean?
Let
And
me
the
let
thing
me
is
ask
that
you this: being growing up in Florida, do you believe white privilege ever existed in Florida?
ever existed in Florida. It's not, there's not, to me, there's not really a thing such as white privilege. I think it's just an existence of something
Well,
that
let me rephrase. Okay, I get your point. Let me rephrase it then. Do you think there was ever a time in Florida where you were better off being born white than being born black?
that's a really good question. Um, Maybe in the past, I guess, but I mean, I can't, I don't really know because I don't even see that personally. I don't even see a privilege of gaining advantages because of your skin tone.
Have
I
you ever heard of slavery or the Jim Crow era?
Yes.
Would you agree that during slavery or during the Jim Crow era, it was better off being white than black?
Yes.
Okay, you sound kind of hesitant. I'm trying to find out. You sound kind of hesitant. Okay,
No, it's
so
that
go
that
ahead.
is a that yeah, that is a real yeah. That was a time in history that was unfortunate and did occur. I think we're moving past that, but also I think that it exists. Racism continues to exist because people continue to embrace that it exists. They keep talking about it. They keep bringing it up. They keep bringing up examples that have happened in the past. And yeah, there's things that do occur on both ends of the spectrum today. But I think honestly, it exists because people bring it up, and it's like they live in it. So they live in
Well,
this.
so in regards to constantly bringing it up, do you personally believe it would be better to help us get past, say, the racial issues in this country? Would be better if we just kept silent about it?
Not kept silent about it, but like not to live in this idea like that you're gonna be targeted on a daily basis just because you're a specific skin tone. Like honestly, like people use the quote unquote the black card when they don't get their way or something goes wrong, and they're like, "Oh, you're doing this because I'm black," or
Yeah,
why do I get this because I'm black? It's like
yeah.
no, man, it has nothing to do with that. And there are people who abuse that and they use it as like a tool to get their way because the other person doesn't want to deal with this or get in trouble or get reprimanded or whatever the case might be. It's real. That's a real thing. People use that
Well,
card.
if you can use a black card to get your way, and you said that you haven't seen any issues of white privilege, essentially what you're saying, what we have in this country is black privilege because you can use that card to get your way.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said, what you're essentially saying is we don't have white privilege, we have black privilege. Because according to you, if things are going wrong, you can use the black card to get your way. So you're suggesting we actually have black privilege.
No, I'm not. I'm not even saying that at all. I'm just saying that sometimes blacks, because I've dealt with many, they're like, if they don't get, if something goes wrong or I point something out or whatever the case is, if something goes wrong in their position and they're like, oh, well, why are you doing that? Is it because I'm black or whatever the case is? It's like, no, it has
Yeah, but
nothing.
you said when they say that they will get their way. If you said if they pull out their black card and say it's because I'm black, they will often get their way. Did I not hear you correctly?
No, they won't necessarily get their way, but they'll use that as a tool to try to get their way. They may not get out of
Okay.
something, like they think they're gonna get out of something, or somebody may actually give and be like, "Oh, okay, fine, whatever. I'm not gonna deal with this because I don't want to get, in trouble or whatever." But like some people don't care about that. Like if you get, like for example, you get pulled over and you fuck up. Oh, pulling me over because I'm black? No, because you were speeding or whatever the case is.
Right, right. Well,
There's
I
some
got to
people.
move it on, but I'll give you the last one. I want to ask you this. If there is no issue with the police pulling over folks simply because of the color of their skin, why are there so many police departments that have actually come out and admitted it?
I mean, I can't speak on police departments and what their policies are and how they're
Right.
in their departments. That's something that I can't really talk about because that's a broad question, and there's a lot of different answers to that.
Fair enough. All right, man. I appreciate you coming on. My door is always open to you. If we've never talked before, right?
No,
All right, come on back anytime, man. Don't be a stranger.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. In the comments, then why you speaking for blacks but can't speak for police as well? All right, it's a fair question. Looking in the comments, before we go back to the box, tap the screen, get your boy up to 15,000 likes. Let your thumbs not be lazy. As always, we don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their damn commentary. You don't have to agree with the host. You should be able to see that on all the callers. I let folks speak without any fear of being blocked, banned, or censored. Even if you totally disagree with yours truly, think I'm a total idiot. I don't even limit your time because I am that much of a fan, of a proponent of free speech. So you always get to speak here. If you enjoy civilized dialogue without being blocked, banned, or censored, feel free to follow the program. That's what we do here. Program is MAGA friendly, always will remain that way. Looking in the comments, fact that he hesitated to answer whether black people had it hard during Jim Crow disqualifies him. Well, it certainly made me question my last caller when I asked, were you better off being born white during the Jim Crow era in slavery? And he was, I didn't get that. Maybe he was eating or maybe he didn't hear me correctly. I'm going to give a man the benefit of the doubt because that should be an emphatic yes. All right, going back to the box. We'll keep it moving with Sang Boy. Good afternoon. Welcome. Well, I don't know if it took it or not. Let me see here. For some reason, okay, we'll keep it moving. I don't know what happened with my last caller, but the hard truths. Let's see if I don't know. There we go. All right. Appreciate you folks that have been holding on. I'm trying to get something's going wrong with. Okay. I felt like, I don't. He was avoiding the question, says Lady J. Well, I think maybe he was contemplating his answer. Hard truth. Good afternoon.
Hi. Hey. So check this out. This is kind of really interesting. So Donald Trump, he was exactly 70 years old, 7 months and 7 days on his first full day as a president. And Trump and Putin, they first met on 7/7/17, and that was the G20 summit. And that was the day that Putin was exactly 7/7/7 months.
You waited to get in here to say that? What are you trying to say, man?
7 months and 7 days. No. I'm trying to say that because 666 looks like a 777 in Hebrew and in Arabic and in Aramaic and ancient languages. Sixes look like sevens and sevens look like sixes. The letter F is the sixth letter of our alphabet, but it looks like a seven backwards. And G is the seventh letter, which resembles a six.
All right. Okay,
MAGA is the name for the fifth and highest rank of the Church of
I'm not
Satan.
listen. I don't
No, hold on.
necessarily
Let me just
buy
finish.
into you. Okay,
I used to love Trump too. I used to love him.
Wrap it up, because I don't know where you're going with this. Go ahead and
Okay,
finish, man.
so the biblical Antichrist comes as a false hero and brings a false peace. MAGA means witch in Latin. In Greek, it means witch basically. In Italian, it means sorceress, magician in Spanish, Lies in Zulu, evil, wicked, calamity, disaster is what MAGA means in Japanese. In Nigerian slang, it means easily fooled idiot. Donald Trump
What
always
does
says
it
he's a
mean?
victim.
What does it mean in America? What does Mac? Because that's where it's at. What does it mean in
Well,
America?
Magsman in American means a swindler. Magsman is it means like a swindler, a con man. So I'm just letting you know that the biblical Antichrist comes as a false hero, and we're not supposed to worship any man. And Donald Trump, he's gonna look like the hero because he's gonna go and arrest Clinton, Bush, Biden, Dr. Fauci, Bill Gates. He's gonna stop the wars, bring all like the peace and stuff, which is what the Antichrist does to win people over to him. I'm pretty sure Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, Princess Diana, a bunch of them, Tupac are all gonna show
All
up,
right,
and
man.
they're all
All right,
like the
I gotta move it
777.
on. I gotta move
They're
it
all
on.
evil.
I don't. All right, he had a lot to say. I don't know where he was going with all of that. Uh, wow. Like I said always, I don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary, but his topic was something we were not even discussing to the point where I don't know how to even respond to that. I mean, I like to be able to engage in dialogue with you folks, particularly MAGA. That's who I prefer talking to, but it has to be something we can actually have a dialogue on. His conversation is better for someone who just wants to listen. I don't have any type of input I could offer at all on that. I mean, you're comparing MAGA to the number 7 and the number. I don't have anything I can offer at all on that. That's out in space for someone like myself. Nothing. I mean, I might as well go get somebody and talk about quantum physics. I have no knowledge on that at all. Nowhere to even go. Looking in the comments, make America great again, pre or post slavery. Wow. Was America great pre or I get where you're going with that. We'll see what happens with the callers, because I do get where you're going with that. He's saying he's evil, not right. Yeah, he was suggesting that Trump was the Antichrist and things like that, but the way he stated his case really complicated the issue. Certainly when you're comparing him to the number 6 and the number 7 and what MAGA means in Japan and all these other countries. Because keep in mind, both Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton also used the phrase "Make America Great Again." In fact, when I used to do my nightly shows, I actually had a picture of the button. Remember when folks used to wear buttons? I grew up in the day you folks put the Michael Jackson and the Prince buttons all over their clothes and shit. Well, they used to also have a campaign slogan buttons. I think they still have them to some degree. And there was a "Make America Great" 1980 button for the Ronald Reagan campaign. It says "Make America Great Ronald Reagan." So Trump does not have a patent on "Make America Great." It was used before. Looking in the comments, the ignorance in that statement, America was never great. Fair enough. Depends on who you ask, by the way, too, though. Seems like you're a very smart man. Huckster. Appreciate that. But I learned a hell of a lot from you folks. I have never come across, never intend to do so as a know-it-all. The whole purpose of the show is that we can exchange ideas, exchange viewpoints. Hopefully we all can walk away more educated, or at the very least get a few chuckles and laughs in. Going back to the box, we'll keep it moving with Faceless American. We're talking the stark difference as opposed to the right and left when it comes to racial issues. Why is there such a difference? Good afternoon, Faceless.
How's it going today, man? It's been a bit.
Well, it's always good to have you back. Well, we went through the Trump indictments. Hopefully we can kind of let that sit on the back burner for a minute. Trump will certainly come back to the top of the news, but in the interim, I just wanted to ask that why do you believe the GOP versus the liberals have such a totally opposite view on most racial issues?
Well, I think the left tends to be more easily persuaded because they've got more passion. Okay, as far as and sometimes they
Wait,
try to
wait,
say
wait.
it's
But you say easily persuaded in passion. Did you not see
no,
what happened on
no.
January 6th? There was a lot of
Well, I
passion in
saw that.
that.
That was it, yeah. But you also saw what happened during the riots and the things getting burned down and whatnot. So I mean, tit for tat. But
But that's
The
both
left,
sides. You started out by saying
that's
just the
both
left. Now
sides.
you're admitting it's
No,
both
no,
sides.
no, no. I'm kind of yeah. Oh yeah, it's definitely. I mean, if you remember any of our conversations, I am not fond of either party.
Okay. So in other
You
words,
know,
both the right and left are easily persuaded.
right? And
Okay. Now we're getting okay. Keep going.
it's the left always has to have a cause. You know what I mean? They have to have a cause. So whatever it is, whatever the media is pushing, whatever the government politicians are pushing, whatever is the new hip thing. Okay, like tomorrow it could be pick your nose and wipe it under a table for solidarity. And they would probably do it, okay? Whereas the right wants they're passionate about other things as far as, like people working and people, not getting free things. And
What
I'm
about
kind of in
being
that,
passionate about who your neighbor is sleeping with? The right has always been very
yeah,
passionate. They were passionate against gay marriage. So when you talk about working and things like, I mean, the right is passionate about issues that does not necessarily mean any difference to them too, though.
yeah, yeah. Everybody spends too much time sticking their nose into where it doesn't belong.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't care
no,
who you sleep
I'll
with, who
let you
you love,
continue. I'll let you
and that should
continue.
be
But
the
the only
way.
reason why I'm asking this is because you're making it. Your statements are suggesting that it's mainly the left, but then when I question you, you're admitting, well, the right does the exact same thing. But keep going.
Well, I guess for me, the reason I think that the left stands out more is because, for instance, I did kind of a social experiment the other day. I came on, was going to talk about Sasquatch because I was getting sick of the political stuff. Nobody popped on. And I was like, I wonder what had happened. So I went out and I found a screenshot of Joe Biden, put something up there about, great, now you told the whole world I don't remember who I am. Jill, give me some ice cream. And within the matter of minutes, I had over 700 people in my room. And it wasn't, why have you got that picture up there? There was no questioning. It was instant. They were ripping on me for my goatee. They were ripping on me about my education. As far as they knew, I was a knuckle dragging, slack jawed, tinfoil hat wearing guy. Nobody asked me why. And then they got mad because I stayed calm about it. I didn't get mad. I didn't boot anybody. I didn't, start yelling and screaming. But it was an experiment. So I put one up of Trump later. It was the same thing. They came in, and even some of the
What
even some
was
of the
that? What
Trump
did you put
supporters.
up with Trump? Was it positive of Trump or negative?
I made fun of him. I
So
wouldn't say it was positive.
what did you? What? Explain it. Give me details of what you
I'd
put
have
up
to look at
about
the
Trump.
video because I just grabbed an image. That was it. I just that's what it was. I said I live in everybody's brain or something because
That's not
he is
making
in
fun of
everybody's.
him. That's not making
Yeah, it
fun of
is
Trump. How?
because it's making fun of him because that's what he does. Okay,
But that's not.
to me
If
that
I'm
was
able to
to
live
me
in
that
your
made fun of me.
brain, if I'm able to live in your brain, and I've been a TV celebrity, I've been a politician. That's a good thing. That's what I would
I
want to
hated his
do.
shows.
That's beneficial to me.
I guess I never thought of it that way. I just kind of think
Yeah,
it's
you're not
pretty
making
bad
fun
when
of him.
you.
You're actually making him out to be successful doing that. That's what he would want to do.
Well, that sucks. I shot that one to shit.
Yeah, that's
But
probably why
but
your
at the same
viewpoint
time,
your
people
viewers
from
were
both
skewed.
sides, people from both sides came on, and some were positive. The others were the majority of them were negative. We need to be negative these days. Everybody's so trained to be negative. So it doesn't matter what it is. We're never going to come to any kind of an accord, whether it's race, whether it's religion, whether it's sexuality, because they are so polarized. Honestly, I think if you cut all telecommunications, if you cut all social media, within a few months, people would start to have to talk, you know, and
Yeah,
they
sorry,
wouldn't be
never
able
go
to
back to
have.
lying. Yeah, but you got to keep in mind, if you live in America, like myself, for instance, born in the '70s, went to school in the '70s and '80s when we did
Mhm.
not have
Yep.
social media. We now realize, thanks to social media, a hell of a lot of the stuff they were teaching us was bullshit and lies. So there is some
Yep.
pros and cons to having the internet.
There are, there are, but it's also taken away from people. I mean, okay, you're in your 50s, right? I'm 50 this year. I'll be 51. You know,
Same.
I didn't. Where I grew up wasn't the safest place in the world. I lived in a security complex. Cops patrolled, relentlessly. It was not the safest of areas, okay? But we all got along. We played. I was robbed. I got the back of my head blown up by fireworks. I was still friends with their brothers and sisters. I didn't care that it was a couple black kids that did it to me. Big deal. They were just kids, you know? People have such a divide now. And I see that, and I think it's worse than it was in the 70s. I really do. I think it's
Really?
worse than it was in the
Where did you
80s.
grow up at?
Just down near Racine, Milwaukee,
You said
Wisconsin.
where? Racine?
Racine, Milwaukee, Kenosha, that
Okay.
area. So, I
Okay.
mean, it was,
I'm gonna tell you this from an African American standpoint. I would have because the Civil Rights Act was passed in the mid '60s. I would have a hard time accepting that America was better, at least for minorities, only 5 years after the Civil Rights Act was passed, as opposed to now. And the reason I say that is because there is far more wealth and property and things like that in the minority community than there ever was in the 1970s. Also, if someone like my last guest was talking about pulling out the black card and things like that, if an African American now says that the police mistreated them, people actually do consider whether it happened or not. In the 70s,
well, yeah.
nobody gave a damn what you if you walked in the 1970s and said a cop mistreated you, nobody gave a damn about that. So I believe the
Yeah,
reason why
that part
things
of it
look
I could see.
better, yeah, I believe the reason why things look better in the 70s and 80s is because we were not receiving the truth.
It might be. It might be. I just know what, from the community that I was in, the kids that I went to school with, we never hated on each other for, the color of our skin or, I mean, we all played together, we hung out together. The only, the only real racism that I saw, the first time I actually questioned what the guy was talking about was when I had that incident when they had shoved a firecracker, not a firecracker, but one of those big rockets in my back pocket, and it got caught on the back of my hood, and it blew up. And so my mom called the police. I knew who they were. I went to school with them. The cops took me there. I pointed them out. They said, well, and they looked right at my mom and they said, well, we can't really do anything. At your son's age, they all look alike. Now, that's racist. But the worst part was it was a black cop that said it. And I remember asking my mom, what does he mean? Oh, that's Jake. I know Jake. He goes to school. He walks with us to school. His sister is evil. She's
Well,
the
let
one
me
that
let
held,
me say this. I'll tell you this right off the bat. When it comes to racism, and like you talking about, we didn't see this in our neighborhood, in our schools. I don't think anybody did. I mean, I've talked to folks who grew up in the 40s and 50s, and they say the same thing. No one sees it, and it's because folks who have this type of mindset deny it. I mean, think about America's history. We've had racist laws for a large portion
oh
of our
yeah,
history,
oh, and there's
and
there's still some in effect.
no, but hear me out when I say folks deny it. Think about how many intolerant politicians we've had over the 200 plus years of this country. Now try to find actual quotes from politicians that actually admitted they were intolerant. They all deny it. So if you're looking for intolerance to the point where you can get a confession or somebody, hell, even the Klan wear hoods. Nobody comes out and
Yeah,
admits that they're intolerant. They all lie about it. So there's no way to know if you're staring intolerance in the face or not. Because if you ask
you
the
don't know who
person,
the wolf
they're going to
is.
say they're not.
Yeah, see, I guess I always just liked the thought that we all got along, And I was raised not to judge people on, how much money they had, the clothes they wore. That's how I was raised, And that's always been kind of a part of my brain that I enjoyed where I was when I was a kid, you know. So I
Well,
mean,
in
yeah, I
children,
guess I never thought about it.
children will like other children because this stuff has to be taught. So if the parents are not teaching it, the children will not do it on their own. But
Yeah. Oh yeah.
which is
It's
what I'm
nature
saying
versus
though.
nurture.
When you talk to folks, whether they're black or white, that are intolerant, the first thing they're going to say is, "No, I'm not a racist." Nobody admits that. People always lie about that throughout history. Even when Martin Luther King was fighting, there's no racism going on. I don't know why he keeps coming to these towns with marches. That's not, I mean, folks will always tell you otherwise. So it's very difficult to gauge if you're looking at
Can,
intolerance if you have to
can I?
listen to the person's admission.
This Marie KS down here, she says, so he only saw racism was when it was against his precious white self. First off, I'm not white. Okay, so you can take that off the table. Secondly, I didn't really see it because I didn't see it with my family. I didn't see it with my family's elders. I didn't see it in the people that I hung out with in school. I didn't see it in a lot of places. Was I aware that bad things happen to people? Yeah, but I didn't see it on the scale that a lot of people did because I got along with everybody, because I was raised not to hate somebody. So my precious white self, I apologize for not hating people. Do you want me to? I can pretend to hate you. Do you want me to call you some names? Would that make you feel better? That's what I'm talking about. It's that kind of mindset.
Yeah,
People can't accept, whether you're black or white, there's people that can't accept that somebody doesn't hate somebody because it's
yeah,
programmed into people today that you have to hate them because of this or that. And that's horse shit.
fair
So,
enough.
I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to go off.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. I do got to move it on, but listen, come on
Nope,
back
that's fine,
anytime,
man.
man.
As always, it was a pleasure, man. You take care of yourself. You have a good
Same,
day.
same. Come on back anytime. All right. On in the comment section, yeah, but I've said that before, is that most folks that are intolerant, just like with the LGBT issue that's going on currently in America, nobody hates the LGBT community. That's what you're hearing. No one has a problem with these folks at all. It's just, I don't want it shoved down the throats of children. I don't want it displayed everywhere. No one hates this community. So you're always going to have people denying reality. I mean, it's just what it is. When it comes to hate, the end goal is to deny that you have that, because it looks awful. It makes you look really bad if you're just hating somebody for the sake of hating somebody. So everybody's going to deny it. So yeah, if you're waiting for an actual confession, like what my last caller was saying, he grew up and he didn't see it. I grew up in Chicago, south side of Chicago. I didn't see it either. That doesn't mean it wasn't there. If you live in a neighborhood that's predominantly white or a neighborhood that's predominantly black, you're not going to see it, because a lot of times maybe it's the police, or maybe it's some shit that happens after dark. All you doing is playing with your friends. You don't see it, but that doesn't mean it's not happening all around you. If you're not looking for something, you generally don't see it. It is what it is. I mean, whether it's my parents lived in this neighborhood because they couldn't live in this other neighborhood, well, me as a child, I'm not going to notice that. I'm just playing with my friends every day. I don't know that the reason we live in this area is because they won't let us live anywhere else. My parents are not going to tell me that. So you won't see it, but it is there. All right, going back to the box. When you're looking for something, you'll find it. That is true. And sometimes you will find it when it doesn't exist. There are folks, minorities, black people, that see racism in every damn thing. And sometimes it's not racist. That does happen, which is what my caller was talking about with the black card. I'll move on. I don't know why my voice is doing it, but let's keep it moving. The one and only. I want to talk to this man. I really want to talk to this man, because this is right up your alley. 52 Cent. Why is it? We'll have a conversation, and hopefully you don't get banned. But
I
why
don't
is
care if I do or not. The only place I go live is on your show. And so you guys just get to miss me for a minute.
okay? Well, let's try to keep it simple. Why do you believe Republicans versus Democrats see racial issues so differently?
I don't think we do. I think we're accused of it.
Kyle Rittenhouse, George Zimmerman, Colin Kaepernick, we do see it differently.
Well, you're regarding police. You're talking about the police.
Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't police. Neither
Well,
was
no.
George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman taking the life of Trayvon Martin. That wasn't police.
Well, let's say you're talking strictly in legal terms.
We're talking about
Let's put
people.
it that way.
Okay, all right. Okay. What about white privilege? Folks on the left believe white privilege is real. Folks on the right think that's ridiculous. Why is there such a difference there?
Well, I do know this. You may mention white privilege. However, if you are a actor of color and you can't get a role in a commercial, you suck.
What do you mean?
I
Elaborate.
mean, just about every commercial you see, unlike how it used to be with me growing up and you growing up, there is African Americans in almost every commercial on TV.
What is the difference between now and when we were growing up? What are you saying was happening when we were growing up?
There was hardly any African Americans in a commercial.
Right. Okay. All right. Was that racially motivated then?
I don't know if it was racially motivated or stereotyped. I don't know.
There's a fine line between stereotype and racism, though, isn't there?
Yes, that's what I mean. I don't know which it was. If it was a stereotypical thing to do, I don't know. That's I don't worry about the race stuff. If you're nice to me, I'm nice to you. If you're a dick to me, I'm a dick to you. That's how it
Well,
works.
well, let me say this because I haven't had a lot of overt racism thrown at me. I've been hanging around a hell of a lot of white people most of my adult life, so I haven't had it from that aspect. But I will tell you this, like I told my last caller, just because you don't see something does not mean it's not there. And the example I'll give is I used to own several properties in Chicago and didn't have any problem. Got mortgages and all that, didn't have any problems. All of a sudden, I get an email from a law firm. In fact, a couple law firms, because I had a couple different mortgage banks. Countrywide Financial was one of them. Apparently, they were giving higher interest rates to black people, and I was one of them. So I was treated in a racist manner and didn't even know it. So that's what I'm suggesting when I say it can be happening and you not even know you're a victim of it. Where for my credit score and all of that being the same as someone white, I was given a higher interest rate. And there's no way for me to know that unless there are somebody behind the scenes actually auditing them, and that's what they found out. But I would have been walking around, I ain't seen nothing. I haven't seen any racism. And here I was a victim of it.
See, that's just plain dirty fool right there.
But that's kind of the way things have went, whether it's redlining or I mean, there's a whole lot of industries where African Americans, even the FHA loans, were started out in a manner where blacks had no access to. So if you're white, you could use the Federal Housing Authority to get a home, and black people couldn't use it. But if you're not trying to buy a home, I don't see any racism. But all of the white students in your school, their parents are growing up and buying homes. So it can be happening and you not know it's around you.
Well, that's not a good thing in the least. All these people in your comments are saying he's a racist, he's a bigot, he's a. I want to just tell you something. One of my best friends is a black woman. And they're going to say, well, he's got a friend that's black. I let a black girl. All right, all right. I met a black girl who was a waitress at a restaurant that I went to regularly, and she was sleeping in her car. And I said, I've got a bedroom. You can come stay here. Throw me a little bit of rent money. You don't need to sleep in your damn car. That's bullshit. You're working a full-time job. You're sleeping in your SUV. I said that no, you come stay here. She stayed here I want to say about 4 months. I told her I've got 3 rules. You don't steal from me. You don't bring anybody into the house that I don't know. And you just don't treat this like it's a hotel. that you can bring anybody over, you can throw a party, respect the house. I'm giving you a leg up, take advantage of it. Well, she flushed all her sanitary products. I had to have my drains snaked out twice. She busted up my Venetian blinds. She brought a cat in here. Uh, Everything in my house was new. She brought in a cat. Well, it ended up she left. Well, I was a DJ at a black bar. It was primarily African American customers. And I'm telling one of the bartenders about this girl. Didn't say anything about race. I said I had this girl living with me, flushing her sanitary products, clogging up my drains, bringing guys into the house. And the owner of the bar, who was a black man, he turned around and he said, "She's a black girl, ain't she?" I said, "How in the hell did you know that?" I didn't ever say.
But wait a
He
minute, let me
said,
interrupt you. Let me interrupt you and ask you, because this is in regards to what you're saying. Because you talked about her flushing her sanitary products down the toilet. In the comments, Maria KS in capitals. Colored folks aren't using indoor plumbing. Sorry, sir. What do you do with a comment like that?
"You put her back on the farm in Virginia where she came from?"
Okay. All right. Do you see that comment as being racist at all?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to see what your thought. Colored folks aren't
Have,
used to indoor plumbing.
other than me joking around, have you ever heard me be racist?
I've heard you say things that I believe would not be good for people of color, but I can't recite them. We've had some spirited conversations. I can't remember everything you said. I'll be sure to point it out just because you asked in the future. You said some things that I don't think would be good for people of color, so I'll leave it at that.
Well, if I was defending police when I did it, don't blame me for that, because I err on the side of authority. I don't back thugs at
There-
all, and I
There's
don't
nothing
care
wrong.
what color they are.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with backing authority, but I think the issue lies often between the difference, because we're talking about the difference between the right and left. It's not backing authority, it's holding them accountable is where we start having problems. Where because a lot of folks believe, if you're not doing anything wrong, let them search your car. Then why give us Fourth Amendment rights? If you're not doing anything wrong, as Trump said, why do you need to plead the fifth? That means you're doing something. Then why give me a Fifth Amendment right if you're telling me I can't even invoke it? So that's where I think we have an issue, is that the right certainly respects authority, but when it comes to holding them accountable, the right doesn't want to do that as much as the left does. And that's my own personal opinion.
Well, and you know, I apologize for the way blacks have been treated. I don't think it's right. Back in the days of slavery, that's the way it was. You can't blame today's society on antique methods. We didn't have 42-row corn pickers back in the 1860s. We had to have somebody go out there and pick the corn. Times have changed, and hopefully,
Yeah, but wait a minute.
as
Let
a
me
society,
interrupt.
we've changed
I want
too.
to. I'll present 2 points. First of all, we know that this stuff did not end with slavery, so it happened a lot sooner than that. But in regards to your comment, we had to have somebody go out and pick the corn. Or pick the cotton. They were doing far more than that. We're talking rapes. We're talking murders. I mean, they were doing more than just using these folks to pick and do labor. They were having sex with them whenever they wanted to. I mean, just literally mistreating the people as bad as you possibly can mistreat somebody. So it goes, and we don't normally discuss that in history. For instance, like, you don't hear about breeding farms, which basically is letting you know that virtually all slaves essentially were a product of rape. Most of those slaves were products of rape, because the female slaves didn't have the right to say no. They bred to make more slaves by forcing her to reproduce. We don't talk about that. But that literally means we're talking literally tens of thousands of rapes. That does not come up in history, and that has nothing to do with picking cotton. That's really
Right.
assaulting somebody. Then, of course, obviously, the moment you reproduce, they yanked that product, which is another baby, out of the mother's hands as soon as they could to sell it off and do whatever else. That's also some serious emotional distress on the mothers and the father that doesn't come up. So it's a lot more to it than just
Well, you're
producing
right.
people to pick cotton.
No, and I agree. But as we have evolved as a country, I hope that that shit's in the past and stays there. That now they're talking a lot about children being trafficked, and basically the same thing. They're
Yeah.
not selling them the offspring, but they're putting kids through this. How many of the ones coming up through the southern border is this happening to? I mean,
Yeah,
we've got a
I
whole
don't,
nother problem now.
yeah, I don't doubt that at all. That's certainly happening. Which also, though, if you want to talk about kids, whether it's Obama or Trump, why would anybody support separating families at the border? Isn't that very similar to that, where you're yanking kids from the possession of the mom? Some of those kids never were returned back to their parents. Some of those children that were taken from the mother were placed into the U.S. adoption foster care system. And some of the moms that entered the country illegally fought to have their kids returned to their custody. And we had American judges that basically said the child is better off in their foster home now. They're better off with their adoptive parents and told the original parents, no, you cannot have your child back. That has happened.
Well, see, that isn't right. They'd ought to reunite them and bust them back over the border.
All right, fair enough. I don't know if we're going to get that no matter who we have in office. But 52, you know what I got to do.
Well, you don't have a lot to say about not agreeing with me today. I I
No,
read,
well,
I
no,
read your narrative.
you were real civilized today. I like it.
No, I like the other way better, but that's just me. I piss
Well,
off more people that way, and that's the goal.
and you're always welcome back to do that. We'll talk in the future.
All right, my friend, have a good day.
You too. You too. 52. 52 Cent is getting soft. Getting soft. All right, looking in the comments, can we talk about the trans party at the White House? Do you think that was appropriate? Millennial, no. No, it was not. Even the White House does not think what they did was appropriate. Talking about literally taking off their tops, baring their breasts, and things like that on the White House lawn. No, it was not appropriate. And not only was it not appropriate, what makes it particularly damning is that it fits the stereotype that the haters of the LGBT community are saying. You guys are inappropriate for children. I don't, you guys are always about sexual images and things like that. So to have them on the White House lawn pulling out their tits and things like that really plays into that stereotype. So the LGBT spokesperson, or not spokesperson, but activist that did that literally set her own movement back by doing something like that. Literally set her own movement back because obviously the White House is a family place. It's supposed to be a place for all. So to go and do something like that on the White House lawn is a horribly bad look. Certainly after you got your hands on a pro-LGBT president and an invitation to the White House. Just literally made the Biden administration look like shit. So fortunately, I can't think of the woman's name, but she's the spokesperson for Biden, made it clear that person is not invited back. Just really abused a privilege. You know how many people want access to the White House? How many reporters, how many activists would love to have access to the president, to the White House and things like that? To go there and do that, just a horrible, horrible setback for that community because she validates the claims that they are continuing to be about sexuality and things like that to children and stuff like that. Just bad, just a bad thing to do. Looking in the comments, Trump will be your next president. Can't wait, says Lola. Listen, and even though I lean left, do I think the world would end if Trump was president again? No, but I do believe we would be a more divided country. Nevertheless, in regards to suggesting that Trump will be the next president, it's possible, but if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say I would be willing to bet more money that he is not. Simply put, the guy is facing a hell of a lot of shit in regards to all of the court cases and things like that he's dealing with. His support among voters has not grown. MAGA is a stronghold. Trump is not losing MAGA. We get that. But you cannot win on MAGA alone. And he is not gaining independence or certainly not taking any liberals from the Democratic side at all. He's not gaining any folks that he needs. You don't even hear folks talking about, remember the walkaway movement? African Americans were tired of the Democratic plantation. They were going to walk away and vote Republican. Obviously that didn't happen, but you're not even hearing that anymore. You're not even hearing stuff like that anymore. We don't even know how females are going to respond to rolling back Roe v. Wade. But we do know by simply quoting Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Mike Pence, and even Trump himself, that the goal is not to return abortion choice abilities to the states. It is to do it federally. The four people I just named, on my night show, I've played their quotes. All four of them have come out and stated that they want to do something federally to limit abortion. Mike Pence, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, and President Trump, all four of them have said something. So if you're female and you are in favor of pro-choice at all, understand that the goal is to do that federally. Now, even if you believe in states' rights, let's say you're a libertarian, you believe in states' rights, they're not talking about stopping at the states. They're talking about doing it federally. So I don't know if Trump is going to be our next president, but I do believe he has an uphill battle. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'm willing to concede and apologize if I am. All right, looking in the comments. Blue wave trash says, shout out. Well, remember we were supposed to have a red wave. A red tsunami was supposed to happen. Now you got, and I'll go back to the box. By the way, tap the screen, get your boy up to 40,000 likes. Appreciate that. You got Chris Christie going around suggesting that ever since Trump was put in power, the Republicans have continued to lose. He talks about the 2018 midterms. He talks about the 2020 election where Republicans lost, I believe, what was it? They lost the Senate and the House or whatever the hell. They lost the Senate, rather, in 2020. He talks about the 2022 midterms. So you have Chris Christie out there pointing out, because Trump stated, you're going to get tired of winning once I'm in office. Is there anybody that believes that was accurate? I mean, now that you've had Trump around for going on 7 years, because he announced he was going to run in 2015, and he talked about you'll get tired of winning back then. It's been 7 years, probably almost closer to 8 years now. Does anybody feel like he was accurate when he stated you're going to get tired of winning? And we're asking this about a one-term president, so even he too has lost. I don't see the winning. I don't see the winning. I understand folks favor his economy, favor the fact there were no wars under Trump, the gas prices and things like that. Those are policies, or that is what we were dealing with in this country. But in terms of him actually winning, does anybody suggest he's been having a bunch of victories since he came on the scene? I'd love to talk to you. Looking in the comments, or better yet, the box. We'll keep it moving. Sang boy, I think we four, and you weren't able to. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you good. What's going on, man?
Yeah. I'm actually, what we were really originally talking about was why is there such a stark difference in how, when racial issues come up, the right views it one way and the left views it totally opposite? Why do both parties have such a totally different view on racial topics?
Well, look at who we have in power on the Republican side. You don't have very many people of color on that side that are willing to speak up. They'll say things that it exists, but then they'll turn around and take it back. So they're straddling the fence. So you got the Tim Scotts and the Byron Donalds that are speaking out and saying, hey, this exists, but you know what? It's not that bad. It's things are changing. And so, things are getting better. And so I just argued with somebody that was actually a Democrat, not necessarily argued, but debated with somebody that was a Democrat. And this person said the same thing. Hey, things are changing. And I gave him the quote. I said, you guys love to quote Dr. King, but you don't quote the right stuff from Dr. King. You use the same quote. Justice too long delayed is justice denied. We've been waiting for
But there are hella. But when you talk about not having the right people on the right, we got a lot of white liberals. See, it's clear as day. When you talk to white liberals, they can clearly see, in their opinion, that African Americans have the short end of the stick. But when you talk to right conservatives, they don't see it at all. I mean, are they wearing different lenses? Why are they seeing this totally different?
because it doesn't affect them.
It doesn't affect white liberals, do it?
It does. It does. When they're white, the people on the right that's white either have a lot of money and they have the power, so it doesn't necessarily affect them. When I say power, not necessarily power to make legislation. There's levels to power. So if I got a business and I'm kind of well known and I'm white, there's not too much a lot. They have this sense of power. So they walk around like, hey, I don't have to, that doesn't bother me. That doesn't affect me. So
Yeah, but
I
let
don't
me
have
let me
to.
interrupt. I'm talking about white Republicans or white right wingers that are in the middle of rural Alabama or West Virginia. They're poor as hell, and they still have a totally different view.
What I,
Than they don't have any power. They don't have any wealth. Can barely afford to maintain the trailer they're living in, and they still have a totally different view of liberals when it comes to racism.
that's just their racism. We can prove that. That's just their racism. Let's go back to Obamacare and the Affordable Health Care Act.
Uh-huh.
You can ask one of those. We can ask the same people in Mississippi or rural Alabama, which one would they prefer? Would you prefer Would you prefer Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act? And if I'm not mistaken, at that particular point in time, they did a poll, and those people picked the Affordable Health Care Act every time.
And it's the same thing.
Exactly. So anything. So I listen. I really can't explain it any better. I don't think there's no explanation. I think that's plain and simple and plain as day. You would vote against your own interests just so that, hey, even if I get it, I dang sure don't want you to have it. So no, I'll vote against my own interests. And then, as what most of them do, they'll turn around and blame the government for not helping them.
I don't get that. Real quick in the
Okay.
comments, real quick in the comments, I'll let you continue, but in the comments, Brownsbacker said, West Virginia isn't poor as hell. You don't follow anything to make a state. West Virginia is one of the poorest states in the union. I don't know what, you must be in a very small subdivision somewhere. West Virginia is one of the poorest states in this country. Go ahead, Sangboy.
So you said you didn't get it when I said that they will vote against their own interests?
No, I kind of do get that. If you're voting, if the Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act are the exact same thing, but I can change your mindset on whether you would be for it or not by simply calling it Obamacare. Yeah, that's a hatred of Obama. Just put his name on something and you'll change somebody's mindset towards it totally. I can see that.
Okay, so let me go a different route. Who are the most who are the most people that receive welfare benefits such as food stamps, Section 8, things of that nature?
Well, it's going to be, there's just simply more white people in this country. It's definitely white people.
Right. But here's the problem. We have white people speaking down to black people and other marginalized groups that receive the help when their people are receiving, and it was created for them to get in the first place.
Yeah.
If you go back and you do the history of how it was created for them in the first place. We weren't allowed to get any of those benefits, period. Yeah. So That's another thing that we're talking about as far as the racism.
You know, it's
Also,
interesting. It's interesting you would say that because right now there's this huge debate over either forgiving tuition assistance or having college free. And I'm not for certain of this because it happened before my time, but I've heard folks even suggest that before African Americans had access to tuition, college used to be free in this country. But the moment African Americans could start going to college, you talk about voting against your own interests, they started voting against it because now black people could get access. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that.
listen, I'm definitely going to go and research that. From what I heard, it was Ronald Reagan. It was Ronald Reagan that put that into motion to make college tuition. It's a real big rumor. I'm going to go and definitely do the research on that. But it was Ronald Reagan that did that, right? Just like it was Ronald Reagan that actually put the actual war on drugs into action. And they're the ones that put the drugs into the places where who black had enough money and enough power to get some planes, to go get some firearms. We were still worried about
Yeah,
how we
but when
was.
it comes to here's the problem with the war on drugs. It's very similar to the Biden's crime bill. Most African Americans, law abiding African Americans, even though that stuff, as you say, might have been against our own interests because of how they were giving us draconian prison sentences, most law abiding African Americans were in favor of it because the drug crimes in our neighborhoods were off the chain. And it was easy to convince law abiding grandmothers and grandfathers that these people are going to come and rob you and take every damn thing in your house. Let us lock them up. And
Guess
law
what?
abiding African Americans were in favor of that.
Guess what? I don't disagree with that. But you know what else that proves? That proves that black people can be conservative as well.
True.
And that proves that black people can be conservative. So this is why I say that there's racism there as well. And it's more outward than anything. Because if they saw that and they saw that it worked, why didn't they use the play to keep going? Because now you can get the black people to vote conservative. You could divide that vote. But no, I don't want you over here. I want to decimate that whole community. But I'm gonna use some agents. Some of y'all that are. I'm gonna take a couple of y'all that are agents that I done fooled, that made it, and this and this and that. So now I'm gonna let y'all go ahead and talk. So say, hey, listen, we not racist. Look at Byron Donalds. Look at Tim Scott. Look at Ben Carson. Look at these people. Look at Candace Owens. Come on, Kanye West. Come on.
Well, Kanye, even when it comes to Candace Owens, who I don't favor Candace Owens, I think she's surrounded in negativity, but I think Kanye West is an outlier, even above someone like Candace Owens, simply because he has stated he adores somebody like Adolf. So once you say that, you just created your own subcategory. As much negative stuff as Candace Owens says, she does not show adoration for Hitler. So once he went into that category, Kanye West is, I don't even know any African American, even no matter how much we dislike some African Americans, whether it's the Hodge twins or Diamond and Silk or Larry Elder, I don't know any of them that have shown a like of Hitler. So Kanye West has his own official category at this point.
Yeah, I guess. But then again, you have to think about it. Even in the beginning, he still has somewhat of an influence. So you still got some people over there that is a bit kooky and that happen to go that route. So even though it's his own category, he still says stuff that is, yes, I know he's
Yeah,
bipolar.
yeah.
I do know he's bipolar, but he still says stuff that is ear catching to that. So you're still gonna get that type of response even from ye. You'd be like, yeah, you might be, you might be like, ooh. Some of the people on the right might be like, ooh, I don't know. But then you got those that'll be like, yeah, he's black and I roll with it. And then I love his music. He knows what he's talking about. You know,
I don't know. Let me ask you this. This is coming straight out of the comments, and I want to see how it resonates with you, whether you agree with this or not. It's coming from P1 Ounce. He's saying that most black people are conservative, but can't vote for GOP because of racism. Do you see any validity to that?
uh,
In other
So
words, you would have a hell of a lot more African Americans supporting the conservative party, but he believes that one of the sticking blocks is the belief that there's a lot of
I,
racism in that party.
in a sense, at one point in time, I could say yes. At one point in time, I
But
could
not
say
now.
yes.
Not now.
Not now. Not now.
Okay.
Honestly, for those who were actually active and who actually had the access to read the bills and understand the bills, um, since that '60s Dixiecrat situation, that's when you're seeing the majority of those that were leaning more Republican begin to switch to the Democratic side because it was safer to vote that, right? Not to say that there's no racism in the Democratic Party, but
Okay.
it's
So
it's
what
it's safer.
about what about the last conservative president we had, talking about Trump? He suggested he's done more for African Americans than Obama and certainly Biden. Do you see President Trump as a better choice for the black community than what we have now?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Um, can you do good when you have evil around you?
What do you mean? Elaborate.
Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller,
That's
Kelly,
elaborating. Yeah.
Kelly. I mean, I'm just going to leave it at those two right there, right? Those two, before they hit the White House, were already peddling in white supremacy and white supremacist acts, not just talking. They were acting on their white supremacy and organizing under white supremacy. So now we have those type of thinking and ideology inside of the White House. You don't think that that was affecting policy going out into the country?
Anything's possible. All right, saying boy. I gotta move it on. This is our first time talking, right?
Nah, I've been on here, but then I
I
kind
don't
of
remember. Did you have that same name?
yeah. I did.
Okay.
I changed my profile pic. If you don't know, really quick, if I may, April 14th, two of my sons were involved in a drive-by. One of my sons did not make it. He was hit 13 times, and the headshot took him away. My baby son, which was 15 at the moment, now 16, was hit 3 times in the abdomen, and so I've been navigating some personal tragedy, if you will. So this is the reason why I have my profile pic turned yellow and saying "Stop the GUN Violence." June is also known as Stop GUN Violence Month, and so because I have personally been infected by GUN violence, I am turning my profile pic yellow, and I invite those that are that will fight with me to turn your profile pic yellow for at least the next 2 weeks of this month and fight GUN violence with me. Fight with me. Allow me to speak. Come to my page. I speak on this. I'm not trying to take away anybody's firearms. I want to talk about some common sense laws so that we can stop issues like this and also mass unaliving incidents as well. Because I believe at the end of the day is number one, there's a firearm, a bullet, and a life at the under end, at both ends of this situation, and we all need to lock arms and stop bridging and stop creating a divide in this situation. I know I know that I'm taking up a lot of your time. I apologize. Thank you for having me up. Thank you for letting me tell my story. I wasn't trying to do that. I came up because I love your show, I follow you, and I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Man, my heart goes out to you, man. I cannot imagine having that happen to both, two of your children at the same time. And man, I don't even. I'm speechless. But I do applaud you for what you're doing because there is this belief that we do not seem to give a damn when one of our own is killed by one of our own. So every person that can speak out about that, even if from the littlest standpoint, it goes against the stereotype. You guys only give a damn when the cops are killing you, but when one of you guys, yeah. So, man, man, come on back anytime, man. I don't even know what else to say after that. That's awful, but God bless you, man.
I appreciate you, man. Hey, I'm having a fundraiser. If you could spread it, I'm having a fundraiser. in 2 weeks. We haven't had an opportunity to memorialize him. He had to be cremated. So we haven't had that opportunity to memorialize him. And we want to be able to pay for that and get that done. So in 2 weeks, I'm going to give TikTok the reason why they call me Sang Boy. And 2 weeks, I'll send that invite to you. Hopefully you bring some of your people with you. Appreciate
All
y'all.
right, send it over, man. Definitely send it
Absolutely.
over. All right,
Absolutely. Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much.
Absolutely. I don't even know how to follow that. I don't know. I mean, I had a friend lose his life that way a long time ago, and it's awful. I mean, now the guy I'm talking about was out in the street doing it to other people as well, and it finally caught up to him. But yeah, it's just an awful way to go. That's an awful way to go, and I can't. If I was having a debate about what happened, I would have questions, but you don't want to ask it to a grieving parent. I would not ask it to a grieving parent. Some of the debate questions I would ask. All I can say is my heart goes out to any parent that has to lose their child in such a violent fashion. 15 hits. His child was shot 15 times. So that is about as intentional and deliberate as possible. Somebody put that many rounds in you, they really, really want to get the job done. That's horrible. Let me just move it on. Wow. Looking in the comments, by the way, tap the screen, get your boy up to 55,000. We were talking about why the viewpoint on racial issues is viewed so differently by the right versus the left. And some of the recent issues, you heard about the guy on the subway in New York that choked out an aggressive passenger that happened to be African American, and the guy passed away. They're suggesting is racism. You've heard about everything from Kyle Rittenhouse over the years, George Zimmerman with Trayvon Martin. Black Lives Matter is certainly viewed differently by the right versus the left. Colin Kaepernick taking the knee. All of these issues, if you're talking to someone that's on the right side of the aisle versus the left side of the aisle, their opinion of it is 180 degrees. Why is that? That's what the question we're asking. Why do different sides of the aisle have such a starkly different view on racism? Looking in the comments, most white people are raised to dislike black and brown people. It's just Jay. Do you believe that, really? Most white people are raised to dislike black and brown. I don't know if I believe that. In fact, I don't believe that. I'd love to talk to you, and I don't know. I would like to hear you orate while you're saying it, but let me keep it moving. We'll go straight to Gen Xer. Fuck around and find out. All right, Gen Xer. Now, I'm going to ask you right off the bat. Gen Xer. Jen, you obviously are a white guy, right?
Uh, Mix, yeah. I'm Italian, German, and Indian.
You're about as white as a sheet of paper. So let me ask you this question then. How do you feel about a viewer suggesting that most whites were brought up to hate black people, or dislike African Americans?
Well, I was brought up in Brooklyn, New York, and we kind of stayed in our own neighborhoods. We disliked Irish, we disliked Puerto Ricans, we disliked blacks. So there's some truth to that. I mean, that's how we were raised as kids.
Mm.
But I think as I got older, and like we moved to Denver, and I met a lot more people, I outgrew it. I outgrew it, and
How were you? What? If you're saying it's true, and I don't get many white folks that would even come out and say what you just said. Give me what was being done to you as a child to get you to dislike these other groups of people.
Well, it wasn't so much people, man, as it was other neighborhoods. Like if you had like Park Slope, that was Puerto Rican. We don't like them. Or we were taught that we don't like them. Uh, Bay Ridge, Irish, German, we don't like them. I lived in the Italian section in Bensonhurst. The Marlboro Projects, blacks, we don't like them. It wasn't so much skin color as it was. I mean, there was
So it sounds more
ethnicity.
territorial. This sounds like gang territory almost.
It was. I think it was a lot more territorial than it was overtly racist. But race did play a factor. I mean, that's just the sad fact of it. I wanted to
You
answer
know,
your original question.
sure, I'll let you do that, but before I do, I will say it's refreshing talking to you because you don't. I've talked to a hell of a lot of folks that are white about these issues, and it's very difficult to get someone to come out and just say, "Yeah, I was raised to do that." But go ahead. What was the other issue?
Well, the original question, why did the Democrats and the Republicans have such a
Right,
different view on racism?
right.
You want to know? I'll tell you exactly why. Because there ain't no money in it if they agree. Can't nobody
Mm.
make a penny if they agree on it. None of them.
So I want to
There's,
hear about both sides. Let's start with the Democratic side. How does the Democrats make money by promoting that racism exists?
well, because you've got um, most, let's see, most Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, I don't think the Asians do, but I think most Black and Hispanic Americans vote Democrat
Right,
traditionally.
right.
So it's easier to pull them into the mix. Now, if the Republicans agree, well, there's the answer to that.
Okay. I'll follow it up. How does the Republicans make money by suggesting that racism ended hundreds of years ago?
You know, I don't know how that all works exactly. Um, but I do know they make money off it. I mean, that's just between the media coverage and endorsements and this and that. There's big money in it, man. I was always taught follow the dollar. You want the answer to a complicated question, follow the dollar.
Yeah. Well, I guess the reason why I'm asking you is because I want if you're going to follow the dollar, you need to know how they're earning it. And so I'm just trying to find out if you're constantly suggesting, listen, racism ended dozens of years ago, and that's somehow leading to a profit. I would want to know how are they converting that message to a profit.
Because people follow hype. They follow their parties, man. What the party goes with is what they'll go with. Like let's take the Target thing, or all these boycotts against Target and against it was Chick-fil-A on the other side. Remember that years ago?
Yep.
They
Yep.
boycotted Chick-fil-A, and
The
that
good
wasn't
ass chicken.
necessarily race.
That
That
was
was
that was
behind.
LGBT. That was the same thing. Target is. Target is LGBT related, and Chick-fil-A was too.
Right. And that's kind of how a lot of that goes, man. That people follow their parties, whatever the fucking group does, they do. They support
But
in
I
one
don't see
form or
how
fashion
that.
or another.
I don't see how that converts to money though. I mean, if I'm, some poor guy in the middle of Chicago or in the middle of West Virginia, and I buy into the belief that white privilege is real, or I buy into the belief that white privilege has never really been around in America at all, I don't see how they make money off of that. Did I lose you there, Jen?
No. I'm just thinking is what I'm doing. I'm
Yeah,
I'm
I
trying
don't
I'm
see.
trying to give
Yeah, I
you.
don't see how that. I can see how it turned into votes. Maybe, if you want to believe everything is out to get you, you want to believe everybody's racist, or if you want to believe that racism is long over. I can see how it might turn into votes, but I don't see how it. Well, I guess votes alone can turn into money if you really want to look at it.
Yeah, yeah. Boats could turn into money,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. All right. Well, I guess. I mean, there may be something to that. But when it comes to wanting votes, wouldn't the Republican Party want African American votes as well?
Absolutely, but I think that I don't think they can get the majority of the African American votes
Why not?
because they're Democrats. It's just the left has just fed them fed not them, they've fed us so many lies. But the same can be said for both sides of the aisle. You know, we're just
But
consumed.
if you could, President Trump has gotten more of the African American vote than any of his Republican predecessors. He got more than George W. Bush. He got more than Reagan. So he's made some inroads on getting African American votes. So it can be done. The problem is, as you pointed out, too many Republicans are throwing their hands in the air and saying, we have no chance. And I mean, it's just like any sales job, because as a politician, your job is to sell yourself. The doors you do not knock on are the doors you do not get sales from. If you're going to throw your hands in the air and say, well, the liberal media has them locked up, then that is exactly what's going to happen. So what you're suggesting is the Republican Party is pretty much giving up on African Americans altogether.
No, I don't think that. I do think that the reason Trump got so many of the African American votes is because African Americans can relate with Trump.
How so?
He's fucking gangster, man.
Okay, I don't know. How do you see Trump as gangster? I want to get you to elaborate on that.
Trump doesn't bullshit. The way he thinks it is the way he says it. He doesn't have that filter that says, hey, you might not say that. You're probably better off if you keep your mouth shut. He don't do that. You ever been in a room with an angry black man? They're the same way, man. The way they say it is the way they think it. The same can be said for Italians. That's how I was raised. The way I think it is the way I say it.
So if what you're saying is true, that we can resonate to Trump because he don't pull no punches, he don't have no filter, you would probably suggest we can resonate with Chris Christie then too now.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I said if what you're saying is true, that African Americans can get behind Trump because he don't have any filter and he speaks his mind, you would have to also agree that we could resonate with Chris Christie.
Chris Christie's a Boy Scout compared to Trump.
I don't know. Chris Christie speaks his mind.
Not a huge fan of Christie, man. I think he's very, very much pro-establishment. He's been a politician. He's a career politician. He's been there a long time. Here's the difference. Chris Christie knows what not to say. Trump doesn't.
Yeah.
Chris Christie knows what not to say to destroy his career. Trump just don't give a shit.
And that's problematic. That's going to be problematic. But Gen Xer, I got to move it on, man. Appreciate you coming in here.
Hey, Tim, you have a great day, man. Thanks for having me on, brother, and love the show.
Appreciate it. It's always an honor, man. Thank you. All right, looking in the comments, and that's a bad thing, says Easy23. Yeah, it is a bad thing. If you don't know when to shut the hell up, listen, if you're governing a country of 330 million people, you cannot say whatever you want. You just can't. Now, here's where probably the flaw of President Trump is. He's a businessman. A lot of folks who support Trump love Trump's state. We needed a businessman to run the country. Well, that's fine if that's the mindset. But at the same time, you have to compare how America is ran compared to how you run a business. As a business CEO, you can fire anybody on the board if they're not doing things your way. This is my agenda for the company. You either get with it or you go find you somewhere else to work. You can do that as a businessman. You cannot do that as a president. As a businessman, that is your company. As president, this is not your country. You now, as a president, you work for the people. Trump apparently thought it was the other way around. We don't work for you. You work for us. So if you don't do what we want, we can get rid of you, which is why I've always thought the phrase "fuck your feelings" is about as suicidal as a phrase a president could ever come up with. You work for the people. How could you look your employers in the eye and say "fuck your feelings"? That's not going to work in anybody's job. Now, a businessman, a CEO, could say that. He could walk in the boardroom and literally say that. You don't like us opening up a new branch in San Antonio, fuck your feelings, we're going to do it anyway. You can do that as a businessman. You cannot do that as a president, because then you got John McCain walking up there giving you thumbs down and destroying some of your promised legislation. So that's the problem of trying to run the country like a business when you come into the White House. Now you actually have to take into consideration the opinion of the voters, the House, the Senate. As a businessman, you don't. And I've said it numerous times. Trump would be far more effective, a far better president in a dictatorship than in a republic or a democracy. Because you don't have to listen to the people. You can do whatever the hell you want. I think this is what is good to make America great. I think we should do this. I think we should stop that leader. I don't have to listen to anybody. I can impose my policies. I can do my agenda without having to worry. That is the environment Trump has probably operated in his entire life, and he was very good at it. He's a very wealthy man. But as a president, you can't do that. You don't get the same power, and I don't think he knew how to turn that off. Looking in the comments, that ain't going to happen, says Ralph. Okay, fair enough. I love how you think, Tammy. Appreciate that. It's good to have you on. Looking in the comments, you think Democratic Party listen to the people? You're out of your mind, says Michael. Well, you're accusing, oftentimes you hear folks suggest the only reason why folks vote Democrat, they get free shit, or the media tells them to do whatever the case you want to. You're suggesting that the Democrats don't listen to the people, then why are they giving them free shit? The people are the ones that's asking for it. So clearly they are listening to the people to some degree. I'm not saying that the folks on the right do not listen to the people. I'm saying Trump does not listen to the people. I believe, as my last caller suggested, some folks know what to say. He talked about Chris Christie. Chris Christie knows what to say. Some would even say the same thing about Ron DeSantis. As he pointed out, Trump's going to say whatever he wants to say, however he feels. And as he pointed out, even as a guy who supports President Trump, Generation X will fuck around and find out, my last caller, he's a Trump supporter. And he admits Trump says stuff that could destroy his own career. That's not healthy for any politician to do. Looking in the comments. Burn that damn hat. Why do people have such a problem with this piece of apparel? Like I said on the previous broadcast, is there any chance this hat will go down in history similar to the Confederate flag? Because there are a lot of people that are really taken back by the sight of a MAGA hat. 5 guys walking down the street towards you, all wearing MAGA hats. Would you have any problem with that? 5 guys walking your direction, all wearing MAGA hats. Would that cause any alarm in you at all? Would you see friend, foe, or nothing to see here? I'd love to see that. Investigate your politicians before you vote for them, says Taz. That makes sense. You definitely need to do your homework on who you're electing. I agree with that. I enjoy it. It allows me to identify the poorly educated. Chat cat. The MAGA hat allows you to identify the poorly educated. I don't know. There's a hell of a lot of powerful figures, highly educated folks that support Trump. Ben Carlson, Trump supporter, he was not poorly educated. He's a brain surgeon. So I don't know if I totally agree with that. And there's poorly educated on both sides of the aisle. Appreciate you folks that are following the program. This is what we do Monday through Friday. You enjoy civilized dialogue, both sides of the aisle, without any fear of being blocked, banned, or censored. This is where you belong. You don't have to agree with the host. I'll give you plenty of time in the box to state your point. Nobody's going to limit your time because you disagree with the host. Nobody gives a damn about that. It's all about First Amendment free speech rights here. I'll go right back to the box. We'll keep it going with Unapologetically Melanated. Good afternoon. Appreciate you holding on. The difference between the viewpoint of conservatives, African Americans, in regards to racial issues. Why is there such a stark difference now from real things?
How's it going, Tim? How you doing today?
Going good. Good to have you back on. Any idea why the parties view this so differently?
Yeah. Like one of the other guests said, there's just not very many, I would say, trustable African Americans in the Republican Party. I just,
Well,
I don't.
but when
Go
you
ahead.
say trustable, now we tend to have a viewpoint of anybody that's African American that goes Republican. You could have all the trust you want in the African American community. Like Kanye West, for instance, he was well loved by African Americans. The minute you go conservative, we remove your trust card. So how could they ever have anybody trustworthy?
It's not so much that as soon as they go Republicans, a lot of times it's how they go Republican. The things that they spew out of their mouths is they're not looking. They don't seem to come across as having black people's best interests at heart. They do
Give
a
me an
lot of
example.
tap dancing. They do a
Give me an
lot.
example of something that an African American conservative would say that would lead you to believe they don't have the best interest at heart for black people.
Well, just simply with Tim Scott and Donalds, they're not being truthful about racism in America. And I understand Tim Scott comes from a single mother household, all that good stuff, but he's not the rule. He's the exception. And because you're able to do what you were doing, it's not that opportunity isn't available to
Let
everybody
me
of
let me
color.
respond to that. Let me respond because he was on the View with Sonny Halston, and she said exactly what you said. Whereas you can't champion what you did. You're the exception, not the rule. And I'm going to present it to you from Tim Scott's viewpoint. Why
Okay.
can't you do it? What was so special about Tim Scott that allowed him to climb up the ranks and become a senator? Why is that the exception? What's holding African Americans back from becoming successful?
Was well, a lot of it is where you're at and who you are let's say tied to, who you have connections to.
He didn't have any of that. He grew up poor in
I
a
didn't I
in a
didn't say
poor
he
area.
did. I didn't say he did, but there was something about him that somebody saw that they wanted to use his face, whether it be Mitch McConnell or whoever. But at the same time, you gotta have a lot of people out here with those same talents and those same skills. They just don't have the backing.
Well, I will say this, and I've said this before. Now, obviously, becoming a U.S. senator is a once in a lifetime shot. However, if you're African American, even if you come from a dirt poor area, to simply go to school, get a decent education, and become a gainfully employed American, I don't think there's anything holding you back in 2023. I mean, you may encounter hurdles. I mean, such as being wrongfully pulled over by the police or some crazy shit like that. But if you just want to have a decent job, a decent education, a home, a picket fence, and a car, as an African American, you have to admit that is obtainable now.
I would say, yeah, in 2023 it is.
Yeah.
But you got Tim Scott didn't just come on the scene this year. You know, this is something that's been in the works, in the making. Just like everything else, the fact that we have it the way we have it in 2023 has taken some time. Because me personally, I'm born in '78, raised through the '80s. There's a lot of stuff that we are seeing now. There's no way we would have seen a lot of the shit that's going on back then.
Give
As
me an
far
example.
as as far as the advancement of black people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do
The
agree with
example, the
that.
Tennessee Three, them three being thrown out that house and then being bought back, we'd have never seen that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
We'd never
do
seen that in
agree.
the
That's
'90s,
why,
probably.
yeah, I totally agree with that because a lot of folks will ask, well, when was America great and things like that. And I always respond with the point that for African Americans, there's probably not any point in history you'd rather go back to, even the 90s or the 80s, because you are correct that for us, there's more wealth in our community, more education, more everything in our community now in 2023 than ever before. Like when I
Right,
was coming up in the 70s and 80s, I mean, hearing about a black person that was a millionaire, shit, like who?
right.
But now
Sidney
in
Poitier,
yeah,
Harry
maybe
Belafonte.
him, maybe Bill Cosby.
Right,
I mean, you could almost count them on one hand.
right.
Now it is thousands of people. You now got black billionaires. So the amount of wealth in the African American community has increased substantially. And this is the argument I present to a lot of folks who talk about why won't you guys pull up your pants, go to school, and do all of this shit. And I tell folks it's happening. It's just not happening at the rate that folks would want. Because if you
Right.
look at the number of African Americans getting high school diplomas, getting college degrees in 2023, and you compare it to 1983 or 1963, you can see a substantial amount of growth. It's
And you can
just going to
also
take
see,
time.
now that pretty much your degrees don't mean shit as much
Yeah,
as much as they did in the 80s and the 90s. If you had a degree, your degree meant something because only certain people were allowed to get degrees, or it was easier for certain people to get degrees. But now the degrees are everywhere and everybody go to college online and everything else. Your degree don't mean shit no more, and you're
yeah,
not getting paid for what you went to school for. You're going to spend the rest of your life paying off your student loan, basically, because your degree don't mean shit no more.
yeah. Trust me, I got three of them, and I'm on the car talking to you, fine folks. So I do agree with that. I have three college degrees, and I know I do agree with that. Which is why folks on the left were suggesting that they let us out of some of the loans that we've gotten
Right, because
ourselves
there's
in.
no way you're gonna pay them. There's no way they made it impossible.
I agree with
And
that. Yeah,
and
I
like I
do agree
said,
with
growing
that.
up in the '80s, I was listening to your guest earlier, "Fuck Around and Find Out" guy, and I was happy to hear him be honest because I still like I told you before. I'm in Missouri. Grew up in Missouri for the most part. My stepdad was military, so I did move a little bit, but I ended up coming back to Missouri. But growing up here, I have people that I was friends with as a kid that we don't speak now, but we were friends as kids, and I would have to go when I went to their house. Have to go through the basement because
Damn.
their grandparents would be like, "Why is that in my house?" Or
Wow.
even their mom and dad. So it exists, and I say for a lot of people, and these people will tell me, "Oh, I didn't grow up like that. I don't see color, and this and that." That to me, that's your first red flag when you tell me you don't see color, because now you're telling me I don't exist. So that's my first red flag with you. But these same people will tell me that, "Oh, I never was raised like that." Yes, you were, and I know you were because I was the victim of it. You may not have seen it when you have a birthday party and all the kids are there, and then I show up, and then all of a sudden there's too many kids. He's
Mm.
got to go, and it's what it was. Like I said, I'm in Missouri, and I grew up for the most part in Missouri. I also was prison at 16. Me and a bunch of friends. We're still in cars. I'm the youngest one. I was 12 at the time, 12, 13 years old at the time when we got caught. At 16, I was the one that they violated my probation, sent me to prison. The rest of the guys were 14, 15, 17, 18, but white guys. But I was the ringleader according to the police, and I was certified as an adult and sent off to prison at 16. So I've been on both sides. I'm actually married to a white woman. So I see both deals. My grandmother was Irish.
Let me ask you this, because this is something I often hear when you're talking about at least whites saying that they don't see racism and things like that. One group of whites more than anyone else that can see whites, and I'm not talking liberals, white women that date black people, white people that hang around blacks often can see racism more than anybody because
Yes.
sometimes it wears off on you. You know, I've dated whites as well, where you get pulled over and they ask the person, "Are you okay?" I've had that happen to me.
Right. Right.
So that's the group that really can see racism like that. But in regards to your mate, does she see? Has she had any problems like that after with being with you?
Yeah, we go out when we do go out. We don't go out a whole lot because I'm more of a inclusive person because I just see too much and I pick up on too much, and I always end up getting myself in some trouble. But so we stay in. But a lot of times we go out and she'll be looking in and she'll just out of nowhere just reach over and give me a big ass kiss, and I'll be like, "What was that for?" She said, "This old racist motherfucker over here staring at us, whispering to his wife," and she'll see shit I don't see a lot of times.
Wow.
And she makes sure to point it out. She points it out, or she'll make sure to make a scene and say something to him, and I appreciate her for it. I
Yeah.
appreciate it for her.
I've most of the people I hang around are white, things like that, and I've had the same problem. When I date somebody white, they'll say the same thing. If people ask, "Does your man work?" and things, yeah, I've had it happen. So
Right.
I don't like to bring it up that much, but I've what you're talking about resonates because I've had those same experiences. But I got to move it on unapologetic. I was not expecting you to say that. Wow, appreciate you coming in here though.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Absolute, absolute.
Have a good.
Hey, you too. Maybe she is just paranoid, says Get Smart. Maybe, but the stories are very similar from, like I said, just talk to anybody that is, like I said, talk to a white person that dates black people and ask them. You'll notice the stories are very similar. It happens. I'm not here to make it up. You guys know I try to stay as straight as 315 on your clock dial, but it does happen. They have those same stories, particularly the women, because for the most part, throughout history, the target has generally been black males. It hasn't really been black women. It's been black males. We are the aggressors. We are the ones that are here to harm people and take things and rape and pillage. It's been us. So when you find folks that date us or hang around us, they can tell you, yeah, this is what's happening. I mean, but you don't have to believe me. Talk to folks that are in that situation and see what type of answers you get. Never cross-dress. Shout out. I understand what you're saying, but I just wouldn't say anything like that myself, says Get Smart. Yeah, I try to avoid going into it, but that doesn't, just because you're not talking about something doesn't mean it is not reality, which is why I also push back on folks like the Morgan Freeman video going around where he said, how do you stop racism? Just stop talking about it. I think that's ridiculous. You hear people echoing it, but fact is, what type of atrocity do you believe would have ended by people simply being silent about it? Let's say what was going on in the Catholic Church, or let's say what was going on in 1930s Germany. Do you believe silence would have made that go away? If I'm doing something wrong, that's what I want is silence. If I'm robbing a bank in the middle of the night, I want silence. I don't want people to be loud and outspoken about it. What type of atrocity is ever going to go away, whether it's racism or anything else you want to point to? Any type of thing you're doing wrong, if you want to continue doing that wrong, the best thing that can happen to you is people not say anything about it. So I never could understand why anybody would think any of this stuff would go away by being silent. Wasn't it Martin Luther King who said, what can happen for the main way evil can continue to exist is when good men stand by and do nothing? You want silence. That's your friend if you're doing something wrong. Looking in the comments here. Yeah, I've never heard that. Later, because this doesn't solve nothing. There is no racism, but what lives through the people. Barry Ward, there is no racism, but what lives through the people. All of the people are claiming this, so they're just all making it up. I mean, both sides, by the way. Folks are suggesting replacement theory is also about this. You're saying that everybody's just making it up. Okay, all right. I only date black men, says Laura Martin. Shout out to you. You're looking at one. Appreciate that. Fancy Press is history and should never be forgotten. Yeah. And that's another problem in regards to a lot of this stuff is that, in my opinion, as opposed to silence, one of the best ways to get over what has happened is to first admit it happened. There is a lot of pushback to just simply admitting history. There's a reason why some of these movies, everything from Roots to some of these recent movies about the first disc player or the first general and all of this stuff was so controversial. These stories were wiped from history. Just admit what happened and we can all deal with it and move on. What's happening is there's been a trickling effect. And people over the years keep finding out, well, that was bad or that was bad. Like, for instance, I mentioned breeding farms. And the comments went crazy in regards to the primary way of making more slaves was to rape female slaves. Well, actually both, because the guy had to perform too, and neither one of them got the opportunity to say no. You didn't hear much about that in history, breeding farming. So there's so much of our history that wasn't discussed. That's where the problem is that people are finding out from a trickle down perspective. So it's hard to heal when next week you find out some new shit. Just put it all on the table. Let us discuss it without the pushback, without the denial. Because currently the mindset is, yeah, this shit was really fucked up. But if we teach this in schools, it's really going to make some kids feel some kind of way. So to preserve the emotions and integrity of those children, we've been kind of slow to actually teach it at all. Just imagine an immigrant from Iraq, Afghanistan, or Syria come to America, and the parent goes to the council, the school city council board, and says, I don't want you teaching about 9/11 because it makes my kid feel awful. You know how we would teach that parent, assuming they got home safely? What the hell? This happened. This actually happened. They went into the World Trade Center in the building. We're not going to stop teaching that because your kid feels some kind of way. It actually happened. But that's why we've had that, is that folks believe that by teaching this stuff accurately, it's going to put people in a bad light, and some kids are, and that's probably true. Kids can be pretty rough on each other. That probably would happen. But at the end of the day, this is actual history. So keeping it quiet is the reason why some of this stuff we're still finding out in 2023. Like in the Tulsa area, where they got whole streets and stuff built over unknown mass graves. You didn't know nothing about it. Like when folks talk about the Black Wall Street and stuff like that. That really wasn't even a major discussion 10 years ago because it was kind of wiped from history. After doing it, they passed a law. You cannot have funerals for these people. You cannot post it in the paper. You cannot even put a grave marker down. Just kind of wiped them out from history. So now in 2023 or 2020, when people were finding out about it, if you just had told the truth back when it happened, you wouldn't be having this discussion 100 years later. So that is the problem for folks who suggest this goes away when you're silent about it. Eventually, if you do something wrong, what is the phrase? What's done in the dark will come to the light. You can be silent about it today. Maybe your kids, maybe your great. Somebody's going to talk about the shit you did later on. So why not just talk about it? Get it out in the open. We can all move on and stop continuing to discuss it. But constantly trying to be quiet about it is why we're still talking about this stuff. Because, like I said, one atrocity over here we never knew about, or one town over here that was mobbed and ran over and they killed them. We just found out about that. Or if it had been discussed in the beginning, you wouldn't have, these stories would not be making news. They would not be interesting at all. Because your grandmother could have said, we were talking about that in school 60 years ago. They weren't. That's why it's happening to the degree it is now. As always, unfortunately, this is a lunch break live. I appreciate you rolling with your boys. 66,000 likes. I can't hate on that. Ended up with a sermon towards the end, but it's always good to hear your opinions. As I make it clear, I don't block, ban, or censor any of you just because you disagree with your boys. Plenty of you folks disagree with me in the comments. You're always welcome on the program. Till tomorrow, it's your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. I gotta go.